Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. We are near the end of 2038. It has been a somewhat eventful offseason thus far for the Buffalo Wings. Haven't made any huge moves, but we have brought on a couple of young outfielders, Juan Romero and Nelson Rojas, in trade. And we also picked up a young outfielder, Jorge Romero, in the Rule 5 draft. So hopefully we've added some guys who may be able to provide a little more punch to our offense in terms of home run power. As far as our pitching staff, we've brought in a couple of Rule 5 players who will likely be competing for spots on our team next year in Mike Ashley and Juan Puente. And more importantly, we brought in a new stopper in Nate Ruckel. And I like Ruckel's profile. Don't love that we're moving on from Lorne Walborn, who has been an excellent stopper for us for the last 5 seasons. But Ruckel ended up being a more economic alternative. Maybe a case of a blind squirrel finding a nut with me ending up with Ruckel on the team instead of Walborn. Maybe a case of my ineptitude being rewarded by us ending up with Ruckel instead of Walborn. But we'll see how he pitches for us next year. He's younger than Walborn. His profile is just as good, if not better. Don't think he has the same endurance as Walborn. Don't know that he's going to be 140 to 150 inning guy as a stopper for us, but very interested in seeing what he can do for us in this upcoming 2039 season. And this 2039 season is going to be an important one for our Buffalo Wings. We're going to be trying to make a 12th consecutive trip to the playoffs, and we're going to be trying to win an 8th consecutive NL East title. Last year we had the most wins in baseball, but we fell in the divisional series, and since we last won a world championship in 2036, we are 1-6 in the playoffs, despite having above 100 wins in both seasons. So, as I mentioned, we're trying to hopefully generate a little more home run power in our offense with the moves that we've made. We do still have a little bit of money to potentially spend. Doesn't seem like there are any real big-time hitters still available on the free agent market, but we do have the ability to take on some salary and trade, either in the coming weeks and months, or as we get into the regular season and closer to the trade deadline. Always interested in beefing up our pitching staff if perhaps there end up being any bargains available in a couple months left on the free agent market. Until then, I think the main focus of this episode is just going to be continuing to peruse the trade market, continue to peruse the free agent market, and get ready to hopefully make an impact in international amateur free agency by hopefully bringing on a player or players who can change the course of this franchise 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And we've simmed ahead a couple of weeks, getting close, about a week out from the international amateur free agent signing period. So we just ran our last camp with a similar crew of players to last month. We'll dig into that very shortly. As I said, did just want to check in on the Hall of Fame voting results, and I don't want to call it bizarro world, but certainly a surprise compared to the real world and where I think the Hall of Fame might go over the next 15 or 16 years. Rafi Devers and Kenley Jansen inducted to the Hall of Fame this year, while Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, Shohei Ohtani, Garrett Cole, and Aaron Judge, among others, remain on the outside of the Hall of Fame looking in. And we have made it to the start of international amateur free agency. As we've talked about in previous episodes, we have a mid range IAFA budget this year, not right on top with 5.7 ish million, but also not on the bottom with 4.75 million. So this is a year where I feel like if there is a true blue chip prospect out there, we've got a better opportunity to get that type of player than we have in recent years when we've almost always been at 4.75 million. So this may be a year that I'm inclined to go for quality over quantity in this IAFA pool. Taking a look at the starting pitchers, we've had 6 guys in camp recently. You can see we're up to very high scouting accuracy on 4 of the 6, only high scouting accuracy on 2 of the others. Juan Castaneda is a guy who looks like a decent prospect, not ever going to be a superstar, at least according to our scout. Looking for a decent amount of money. Probably not the direction that we would go. Jesus Collado, on the other hand, another guy who looks like back of the rotation guy or maybe a bullpen arm, does have some positive personality traits, and he's not looking for a ton of money, and there's not a lot of interest in him around the league, and we've got a pretty strong relationship with him. I don't know, given the thought that I have that I may try to go all in on one big guy this year, that Collado is someone we're going to approach immediately. But I'm hoping that if perhaps things don't work out with the player or players who we target more aggressively, perhaps Collado will still be around a week or 2 from now as a potential fallback option for our Buffalo Wings. So Collado may be an insurance policy for us. Luis Cervantes, another guy who's not looking for a lot of money. Think at his top end, if he fully develops, he's probably a little bit better than Collado, although our scout has them very similarly ranked in terms of his view on them. Very high interest in him. Probably not a guy we'd go after right now because of that very high interest. Unlike Collado, he might not be around in 3 weeks, but if he is, kind of viewing him as more of a fallback option. And Jesus Evina, like his personality, like that he's a 16-year-old throwing in the mid-90s, just don't know that his stuff is ever really going to be major quality, major league quality, and don't know that he's ever really going to have more than 2 major league quality pitches. View him as another fallback option as well. League interest in him is low. We've got a very strong relationship with him. Seems like a guy that we might be able to even get for less than his demand down the line. But I don't see us targeting any of these 4 more lowly regarded, at least by our scout pitchers, right from the start. So that leaves us with the 2 higher rated pitchers and then 4 position players. Edgar Toscano, 17-year-old, really a lot of positive personality traits, love the durability. His 3 pitches are not that far off major league quality at this point. And we think he could be above average in his stuff, movement, and control. A lot to like about the soon-to-be 18-year-old. If we go for a diversified approach with him looking for $1.5 million, certainly would be somebody to think about. And then Luis Cesena, 16 years old. Another guy who's got 3 pitches that aren't too far off of being major league quality, according to our scout, and the potential for a 4th pitch if that changeup develops. Think that his stuff, movement, and control could all be even better than Toscano's if he fully develops. He's clearly the blue chip prospect among the pitchers. So I guess there's an argument to perhaps try to go for 2 of those players. or there's an argument, particularly in Cesena, to just go in very hard and very high with my bid from the start and try to just get him locked up before fooling around too much. So Cesena and Toscano, guys to consider initially. And then I'm kind of looking at Avina, Cervantes, and Collado as insurance policies. Castaneda, if he were still around after a few weeks and we're striking out on a lot of other offers, could be an insurance policy as well. Given the money he's looking for and high league interest, though, not really sure that he'll still be around 3 or 4 weeks from now. So there are 2 pitchers that we would consider going after right from the start. But before we make that decision, there are 4 position players we have been scouting pretty aggressively, and we're up to very high scouting accuracy on all of them by bringing them all into camp 4 times and scouting them separately on multiple occasions over the past few months. Start out with the center fielder Juan Toledo. That contact and home run power combination, if he fully develops, of 75 and 80 is pretty darn impressive. Guy who's got above average speed, decent on the base paths, high leadership and high work ethic. Looks like he could be a very good major league right fielder. Toledo is a guy who's looking for big money at $3 million. We do have very strong relationship with him, as well as the other 4 guys, the other 3 guys that we've been targeting. So that is positive, but not surprisingly, league interest is also very high in all 4 guys that we are looking for. So Toledo certainly in the mix if we decide that we're just going to go for one big player that can perhaps be a franchise changer for us. Fidel Mancias, the young catcher, has a actually very similar contact and home run power rating profile. His gap power and his avoid strikeout potential are not as high, doesn't have as much speed. He is, however, durable, and he looks like he is a respectable potential defensive catcher. So a very interesting prospect there as well. I tend to like my catchers to be a little bit better defensively, but with that type of bat and a lot of durability, he can make up for, I don't want to say defensive shortcomings, but he can make up for being a competent / adequate defensive player by having a potentially exceptional bat for a catcher. Luis Hernandez, a 17-year-old right fielder. Contact is off the charts, excellent gap power, and the speed to turn that into a lot of extra base hits. And his home run power, his eye, and his avoid strikeout ratings all look like they could be average or above. Another guy with a high work ethic. Looks like he is a corner outfielder, which is kind of where he's projected at right now. The best bunter of the group for what it's worth. Normal in terms of his injury proneness. And then last, but perhaps not least, is Juan Godinez, a 16-year-old right fielder out of Venezuela. The poorest defensive player among the everyday players. Not a ton of speed, but he is durable. Also does have a high work ethic. And another guy with excellent contact, very good home run power, and looks acceptable-ish in terms of his gap power, his eye, and his avoid strikeout potential. And although I'm willing, as I said, to perhaps throw our full budget of $5.23 million at a player this year, I think Godinez is probably the first guy that I will take off the list, simply because he's looking for the most money of the players that we've targeted. In a perfect world, I would hope that I could get a frontline guy for maybe $4.5 million and then still perhaps have a little bit of money left over to get a pitcher, one of those second tier prospects that we talked about. I'm not going to be unwilling to use the max if I decide to go after a player, but I don't see where Godinez is head and shoulders above the other guys that I'm looking at. And given that his ask is the highest to begin with, I think there's somewhat less probability that we would be able to bundle in another player with him if we did end up bringing him on board. So Mancias is a special situation, a durable catcher with a potentially excellent bat. My concerns about him, as I outlined, the speed, but he's a catcher. I don't expect him to have much speed. The defense is mediocre, or adequate, or average, depending on whether you want to put a more or less positive spin on the words you use to describe it. But I don't know much of anything about his personality, and for a 16-year-old, that's a bit of a concern when the two other guys that I'm thinking about in Hernandez and Toledo, I know a lot about their personalities. Hernandez, high adaptability, work ethic, and low greed. The contact, as we've talked about, could be incredible. If he fully develops, this is a very impactful offensive player. Probably a guy who's a 300 plus hitter with 35, 40 doubles, probably close to 10 triples and 20 home runs a year. A potentially very excellent offensive force. But I can say the same thing about Juan Toledo as well. The gap power not the same, but the home run power potentially off the charts, and the contact not too far off. A decent eye, decent speed. Love the high leadership and high work ethic. I think this guy could be a excellent defensive right fielder. He's looking for a lot of money. I'm very intrigued by Toscano and particularly Cesena. But I think that I'm going to go hard after the guy who can crush the long ball while also making crazy contact with potentially above average gap power and speed, potentially an above average eye, and he's not going to strike out an insane amount of time if he fully develops. This profile, if Toledo fully develops, is kind of a Shamar Jenneret type profile. It's likely to be 6-7 years until we'll know whether he would work out or not. But I'm very intrigued by that hitting profile. So Toledo is the guy that we are going to go after. And we are going to go after him a little hard and a little fast. He says he's asking for $3 million. We're going to offer him $3.35 million to start. The thought is it's unlikely that he's just going to sign with us immediately. He's probably going to end up going for $5.2 million or perhaps even $5.7 million. But if we could somehow get lucky, and again, this is a 5% chance success rate, I think. But if we got lucky and we were able to get him signed at that $3.35 million, we could then pivot with almost $2 million left to try to go after a pitcher to complement him with. If Toledo wants every penny that we have this year, and it will ultimately take that to sign him, I'm willing to do that. But right now, I'm going to try to see if maybe by being a bit aggressive from the start, we can lock him up quickly and for less than we're willing to pay, and maybe use some of the balance for somebody else. So we are going to go ahead and submit a 3.35 million offer to Fossil Toledo, and we will see what happens in the coming days. And although Mr. Toledo said that he initially favored our offer, not surprisingly, he's come back to us and says that he's looking for more money and close to signing with the Cardinals organization. Says he is, actually, he said he was the Cardinals, but now he says he's looking forward to the Giants, and they've offered him $5 million. So I think at this point, we are just going to offer him every penny that we can possibly offer him, the $5.23 million. If we get him signed, we've got the guy that we think is the highest potential player in this class, and if he ends up going somewhere else, we'll at least hopefully know that while there's some other talent out there for us to potentially chase after. So he says he's willing to consider the full offer. He says he really likes our organization and would love to come play for us. Well, then let's make that a reality, Juan. And unfortunately for us, Mr. Toledo has come back and says he has an offer from Cleveland that is more than we can pay. So we have two options right now. One is to try to trade for some additional international amateur free agent money so we can sign Mr. Toledo. The other option is to pivot. Luis Hernandez, who was probably our second choice, not sure if the catcher was still available, whether I would pick the catcher over Hernandez or not, but with the catcher gone, we'll say that Hernandez was our second choice. He's looking for almost $4 million right now. And then interestingly, all 6 of the pitchers are still available. Cesena, who is the top prospect, is looking for a little over $3 million right now. So we could certainly make a run at one of those 2 players. But I did spend some time harassing all of the teams that have some money left, and international amateur free agent money, trading for it has always been a bit expensive to me and hard to execute on. But the Dodgers, who are looking to build a dynasty, are willing to part with that money for a prospect, Aiden Galberth, who's not a bad pitching prospect, but he is a guy who we picked in the 16th round. Certainly not going to be a starter. 20-year-old who didn't do much in rookie ball this past year. And I think I am all in on trying to get Mr. Toledo. So we are going to go ahead and complete that trade for the additional international bonus pool money. And we are going to continue to pursue Mr. Toledo hard. Says he would sign with us for $5.5 million, so we will meet that demand. Says he wants it to be 5.6 now. We're not going to fool around. We've got 5.73 to spend. I'll spend every penny of it to bring him on board. That's more than anyone else can offer unless they also make a trade for some additional cap space or signing budget. So hopefully that means that we will lock up the Fossil to hopefully be a guy that we can be building this team around, as I said, 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years into the future. And mercifully, making the deal with the Dodgers for the extra money was enough to push things over. So we have Juan Toledo in our organization. Is a 16-year-old, will certainly be at the International Complex this next year. Very possible he will be there in 2040 as well. But as I talked about, potentially exceptional contact and potentially off the charts home run power, along with plus gap power and plus speed, an eye that could be a bit above average. The only knock on him if he fully develops is that he will probably strike out 100 plus times a year, but not an insane level in the context of 2023 or likely 2039 baseball. I think he could be a really good defensive right fielder, and we like the high leadership, adaptability, and work ethic. So he likely instantly will become the top prospect in our organization, even though he's probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years away from being able to potentially make an impact at the major league level. And with Toledo signed and part of our organization, we've simmed ahead another few weeks to the start of spring training. Interestingly, the money we have available for extensions and signing players has changed a bit, even though we haven't done anything at all. So I guess that even though they haven't been playing, the arbitration numbers for some of the players in our system have been rising over the last month or so. So financial flexibility a bit limited for us, but like where our scouting and development budgets are, clearly could boost those a bit if we needed in the coming weeks as we get ready for the season. Also going to continue to peruse the free agent market as spring training begins. Haven't quite figured out exactly what our lineups and our rotation are going to be in spring training, so we'll be working on that between now and our next episode. Quick look at who's available in free agency. And as far as the batters, no superstars available. Braden Taylor is an interesting bat. He's 36 years old, almost 37. He's wrecked physically, but over the course of his major league career, he's put up a 127 WRC plus. Have to take a closer look at our roster. We've got some young talent that we want to keep up, and I don't know that another guy who's really just a first base / DH is what we need right now, but certainly that bat is somewhat intriguing in the context of the players who are still available. As far as pitchers who are available, still a couple of interesting relievers. Jackson Ferris, who we had talked about a couple episodes ago as a potential fallback if things didn't work out with Walborn, is still out there and available, as is Ben Verzani, 29-year-old, decent starting pitcher. That third pitch of his, the slider, is definitely marginal. He's fragile physically, and he's also still looking for some decent money, and given the strength of our pitching staff, probably not someone we need to go after. Pretty happy with where our pitching is. But if the prices on any of the better batters or pitchers who are available get even more reasonable, certainly something to think about. But as I mentioned, Braden Taylor is intriguing to me. Billy Weaver, another guy with a somewhat interesting bat, some good personality traits, Iron Man, and he's only, might even sign for a minor league contract right now, so we'll certainly offer him a minor league contract. Could probably use a little personality in the minor leagues. Young Hun Bae, who's got a great personality and a captain personality type, another guy who looks like could be signed for just a minor league contract. So we'll make offers to those two gentlemen. Not a ton of big-time pitching prospects available. Jesus Carrillo, 25-year-old out of Nicaragua, is a guy we've made offers to previously this offseason for a minor league contract. Hasn't been interested, but we'll give him a shot. Barbecue Minton, another guy that if we can bring him on to bolster our minor league pitching staff, we'll certainly do that. And Makai Mumin, 30-year-old veteran with 7 years of major league service. Don't know that any of these guys will really agree to minor league contracts, but we're willing to at least put an offer out there and find out. So the heavy lifting of this offseason is done and complete. When all was said and done, Ruckel, the only free agent of note that we have signed to a major league contract, but we weren't expecting to do a ton. We wanted to bring in a potential big-time pitcher as a stopper. We thought it might be re-signing Lauren Walborn, but it ended up bringing on Nate Ruckel, and we'll find out how that decision works out this coming year. And then other than that, the big move has been to add Juan Toledo, who is the highest regarded prospect in our international complex at this point. We'll be interested in seeing where he shows up in terms of the ratings of prospects in the not so distant future. Right now, our minor league system ranks 19th, and Barbarito, who should be in the majors, is the 36th ranked prospect in baseball. Amezcua, Nava, and Lance are our only three other top 100 prospects. My hunch is that Toledo will probably be the most highly regarded prospect in our system when the new rankings come out. And we will find out about that, and we will find out how spring training goes and who the 26 men who will be coming north to Buffalo are for the beginning of the season in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.